let's talk about Ian Fleming first. He wrote and created James Bond, and he based it off of secret agents and commando types that he had met during World War II. Ian Fleming himself was a British Navy intelligence agent. So the name James Bond, however, comes from an ornithologist named James Bond. Fleming had a book that, he had around his house called Birds of the West Indies by James Bond, and he thought this is the best name because it's dull, and he wanted Bond to kind of just be this basic person that you wouldn't assume to be a secret agent, essentially. So he went with James Bond. Dr. No isn't the first Bond on-screen appearance. That goes to Casino Royale, a teleplay version for the CBS show Climax in 1954, only a year after the book was written. To get the Bond franchise started, however, the one that we all talk about as the official Bond franchise, it started with Canadian Harry Salzman, who had bought the rights for the James Bond books from Ian Fleming, and he had met another producer named Albert R. Broccoli, and yes, his last name is Broccoli, like the vegetable. His family actually came from broccoli farmers. Broccoli wanted to make a Bond film. He wanted to buy the rights from Salzman, and instead they decided, hey, let's just partner up, let's create our own company, and so they created Eon Productions, which stands for Everything or Nothing, and they also created the company Danjaq, which would hold the rights for all the Bond films. They had trouble getting funds at first when they started out, and when you make a movie, you have to go to, usually you try to go to studios to pitch the project to get the funds to make the film. But many of the studios that they went to, they weren't interested. They were just saying, oh, this is too British. This is too sexy. And yes, this is, even though this is 1960s, this is early 1960s. We're just coming out of the 50s. So eventually they go to the United Artists. United Artists gives them $1 million, which isn't a lot of money, but it's for a film at this time, it's not a lot of money. And United Artists UK was able to give them an extra $10,000 to finish the climax of this movie. So originally the duo wanted to make Thunderball as the first James Bond film, but due to rights issues, which we are going to get into, fellas, as once we get to Thunderball, they weren't able to make that film. So they decided to do the sixth book in the Bond franchise, and that is Dr. No.
Do you know why they specifically picked Dr. No as opposed to any of the others?
I think it probably just had to do with, again, the setting is,
it's much more straightforward. It's 2 locations, Jamaica, and then a big base scene. That's it.
So having a low starting budget probably weighed heavily on that decision. Yeah. Okay.
The directing of this film was Terrence Young. He's also responsible for teaching Connery, and I quote, how to be dapper, witty, and above all else, cool.